Okay, cool. Yeah, then we can go.
Yeah.
All righty, let me pull up my chat box over here. All right, what's up, you guys? Happy Thursday. Happy almost 2024. So crazy that here we are on a vision board call. I'm super excited for this call, although I'm not gonna lie, whenever I think it was on one of our leadership calls and we were kind of, dividing up um what we were gonna do for the rest of the year and the topics and who was gonna kind of lead them. And it might have been Tate actually was like, I think Beth should do the vision board one. And I was like, ugh, like gut check for Beth, because while I love this so much, I'm definitely like preaching to the choir here. Like everything that we are going to walk through tonight, as I was kind of putting this content together, which might I add this is a completely new presentation. So I've been doing vision board workshops just for like my own personal audience outside of my team, even for probably 3 or 4 years. And when I was like, okay, we're gonna have to dig in here and I'm gonna have to really implement, like, what is it that I need to be implementing? Because I feel like vision is something that I've really lost sight of. And I think we can all kind of resonate with some of the stuff that we're going to talk through here in a minute. I was like, this needs to be fresh. This needs to be new. This needs to be like something we have never done before. And so I'm super excited to walk through all of this with you. So thank you for having me. I want to encourage you to either get a piece of paper out or pull up like the note if you're on a computer, like pull up the note section or a document or something. Because well, to take notes obviously, but we're gonna have a little couple minute exercise here kind of midway through. I want you to be able to have access to something to write or type on. So like I said, I'm super excited for this call because I think, the fact of the matter is, I don't feel isolated or alone in the fact that this is so needed, right? When we think about all of the things that have kind of transpired over the past couple of years, whether it be in body alone, right? A name change, a rebrand, a new health esteem focus, our programming, our packaging, our marketing, anything and everything about our company specifically, but even kind of even bigger than that, our society, in the health and fitness industry, in all of the ways, there is nothing that is the same today as it was even just last year in our businesses. And I think what 2023 has done for a lot of us is kind of forced us to feel a little lost in direction, confused, maybe questioning some things. And something that we have talked about as a leadership team is kind of like a loss of that edge, right? That grit. And that is what I'm hopeful we will clarify tonight. I heard probably Brendan Burchard, let's be honest, it's probably who it was. He said something to the tune of how every single decision that we make, literally over the course of our life, leads to a vision, right? Whether it's conscious or not. So, what I want to accomplish tonight, well, let me back up and say, this is not going to be a goal setting workshop. So you're probably not going to get off the call tonight and feel like you are very clear on the exact things that you want to accomplish in your business and in your personal life and in your fitness and financially. You're probably not going to have those things specifically written down unless you guys want to stay here till midnight, which I'm all about. Like I'm here for this. And maybe you'll have some of those things kind of clarity around some of those things tonight. But I think we all kind of generally speaking know how to set goals, how to reverse engineer those goals, how to create an action plan where our habits and our routines kind of align with what those goals are. You know what to do, right? And this also won't be, because I know sometimes when we talk about vision, it's kind of like this big cloud in the sky kind of a thing that doesn't feel super tactical. This won't be that either. I feel very confident in that what you're going to leave with tonight is a very rock solid, firm foundation of then how to move forward and set goals, not only within your business, but within your life. So, what I want to accomplish tonight with you, I just told you all the things we're not going to do. What I want to accomplish tonight is I want to empower you to gain clarity on the bigger picture, right? The foundation of what these goals that you're then going to go on and set, what they're going to be built on. That is vision, essentially. And so we're going to ask ourselves, based on the decisions that we've been making, understanding that these decisions ultimately lead to a vision, whether they're conscious or not. Are these decisions that we've been making, is this the vision that I wanted, right? Is this Is this the vision that I had pictured for my life? Am I where I thought I would be? Do I not know where I thought I would be? Have I been kind of just along for the ride, or did I architect this? That's what I want us to really ask ourselves. And I put this kind of graphic together because to me, this is what it feels like, right? The difference for me between kind of just going along for the ride or truly being diligent about the decisions that we're making is the difference between getting inside a boat with an oar and with a starting point and an end point and navigating that, right? Versus just kind of going with the flow, right? Like getting in the boat without the oars, like where you don't know where you're going to end up. And so that for me is like a really helps me like very clearly picture and honestly just get like really honest with myself on, have I just been kind of going with the flow and winging it, or like do I have the oar in my hand and am I actually rowing the boat? And I feel like when we're kind of just going with the flow, that's oftentimes when we feel like life is happening to us and not for us. And to be completely transparent with you guys, I feel like I had a moment of this, like in this exact situation, literally, maybe it was yesterday or the day before. It was yesterday, I think, when they announced the $40 off promo code in the BOGO. I was like reading the thing and reading it. And I was like, I'm surely like, I'm getting this wrong. There's no way we can offer $40 off and a buy one, get one free on the annual membership. Like what? This doesn't make sense. And I went straight to our leadership thread, which is something we're going to talk about in a little bit of like how that has really played a role in me gaining clarity on my vision for this next year. And I was like, am I reading this right? And I don't feel like in my head I was being negative, but I was questioning why the company that I would literally like hang my hat on, I will for the rest of my life, like why they thought this was a good idea. And Scotty and Tate, I'm just going to call you guys out. They both were like, well, let's just try to help as many people as we can as possible with this. And I was like, okay, like that's why we collaborate, right? And I'm like, okay, like blinders on, I'm here to help people. Let's help people. You guys, I'm yesterday I had like a really low number of Success Club points, like maybe 6 or 7. And this morning I woke up at Success Club 18 because I was like, okay, I'm going all in with the promo, right? Like, I don't care if my commissions are going to be lower. Like, I'm focused on getting people in the door as cheap as possible, and I'm going to stink and help them. Like, that's what we're here for. And so I share that with you to kind of share that perspective of like when we don't have the oar in our hand, then we're going to kind of fall into that victim mentality of like, well, there's so many things outside of my control that I can't possibly fill in the blank. Okay. So here is what I want you to ask yourself. I want you to ask yourself if the vision that you have for your life matches your reality today. And I would love for you guys to throw this up in the chat. Like, yes, it does. No, it doesn't. If you want to elaborate, go for it. I will go first and I will say no. And there's no shame around that, right? Like, I think we're going to talk about kind of the 3-part strategy that I'm going to walk you through tonight is like, we have to first get really honest with ourselves. Like, am I where I truly do want to be? Or maybe you don't know where you want to be. But I think this is a really important question for you to write down, to make note of, so that you can kind of come back to it. Does the vision I have for my life match my reality today? And we have to really separate some of that kind of like shame and embarrassment or whatever sort of feelings kind of maybe surface when we ask ourselves this question. We have to really separate that from just truly what the reality of the situation is tonight. Okay. And so tonight, here's what we're going to do. We are going to evaluate the vision that we have for our life, and then we're going to overlay that to how our life really is today. And then we're going to start making difficult decisions, right? Because if the answer is no, if you're like, no, the vision I have for my life is not my reality today, then you have to start making some hard decisions to start to be more disciplined, moving towards the vision that you want. Okay. This is what we're gonna walk through. This is just like a little agenda. Let's look at it really quick. So if you know anything about me, when I do a presentation, I always give you an agenda so you know what to expect. And I always try to create some sort of like what's the right word? Like a play on words or something to help you like easily remember what it is that we're walking through. So here we are. First, we're gonna check yourself. We're going to do some reflection, and then we're going to look at what who before do really means and kind of break down that concept. And then we're going to wrap things up with something that Brendon Burchard calls the vision decision. But before we jump into these topics, I want to remind you of two things. January 1st is just a date change, and you already know what to do. And we're going to break this one down in the who before do part. But I want these two reminders are so imperative and so important, because what will happen is if we don't remember that January 1 is just a date change, and come Monday we feel excited and energetic and we have clarity on our vision and all of the things, and then a couple weeks from then, like maybe we haven't been tapping into that vision every day and our momentum kind of slows down a little bit, then whether it's, and I'm using January 1 as just kind of a hypothetical, right? Because it's New Year's and like that's where we're sitting at right now. But what's going to happen is you're going to start telling yourself, maybe like you did this year, like I did this year, okay, next Monday, next month, next quarter, next year, I'm going to get my act together. Okay. So I need you to remind yourself that like Monday is just another day. January 1st is just a date change, so on and so forth. And you already know what to do. We're going to talk about that here in just a minute. Okay, so what does check yourself mean? This is essentially just reflection. Okay, so walk through this with me, and please feel free to blow up the chat with the responses, because I would love, I think it's so empowering during, especially this check yourself is kind of like a vulnerable reflection piece for us to know that we're not the only ones struggling with something. Okay, so how many of you guys had goals this year that you missed? Would love for you to share some of them. Yeah, like where's I need 4 hands, right? Like where are they? And I'm going to be honest with you guys, and I'm going to walk you through what some of mine were. Okay, while you're kind of thinking through this yourself. And if you want to share some of yours in the chat, please feel free to do so. And this is really important, okay, for this exercise that we're going to walk through. So for me, obviously, elite was a goal, ramping up my content game and growing my following, hosting a team retreat, weekly date nights, journaling every day, getting the fittest physically that I've ever been, recruiting 10 partners a month, hitting Success Club 75 every month, doubling my income, all of the things. Those were just like a handful. Reading my Bible every day. Those were just a couple of my goals. And on paper, the reality of my 2023 is that I am completely rebuilding my team. I haven't felt inspired to create content. I go days without posting on my feed. My body income has decreased by at least 35%. I've lost about 5,000 followers. I lose about, 485 followers on average a month. I went months without posting in my team page. I didn't wake up with my alarm every single morning. I didn't lose a single pound. Like that was the reality of my 2023. But, and this is the important part, right? But what also happened was I got baptized. We found a church home. My marriage literally could not be in more of a different position right now than it was this time last year. I know how to slow down and not burn myself out. I'm the mom that I always wanted to be, that I didn't really know if I was capable of being. I launched a new piece of my business that not only created a lot of impact, but also made multiple 5 figures. I grew closer with our leadership team. I have clarity in who I want to serve and how I want to serve them. And my point in sharing that with you is because you're going to walk through an exercise here in a minute that I'm hopeful will kind of trigger this process for you. And that is that what you, I typed this backwards. What you seek, you will find. Okay. What you seek, you will find. 2023 was not a waste for you. Okay. I am a Christian, so I believe, that we're each crafted for a very specific purpose. And part of that faith is trusting that God's plan is always better than mine. So instead of focusing on all the ways that we have fallen short, let's lean into trusting that maybe he just knows better than us, right? And that the pursuit of those goals create this version of you. I'm going to give you a very tangible example that you guys can probably relate to as you're kind of working with your clients and supporting them. I got a message from one of my clients. She signed up with me probably 2.5 months or so ago. And she sent me a message today and she said, okay, so I think I want to try dig deeper because I really see it being beneficial for me right now in this season, but I have some questions. So what's the plan if I get sick or life happens and I miss a day? I know obviously the goal is, 6 in a week, but if something comes up, do you just skip that day or do you do an extra day until you catch up? And I saw her message And it kind of made me smile a little bit because I was like, the old me would have said, girl, you just show up when it's hard. Like you're committing to it, go all in, show up 6 days, yada, yada, which is what I need right now. So that's what I would tell myself. But instead, because of this process that was 2023 and all the lessons that I personally, as her body partner, learned, this is exactly what I said back to her. I said, how cool is it that we get to navigate that? Like in moments that feel hard or challenging or things happen that are outside of our control, because hello, that is actually life. Like we get to decide what we need, how we benefit the most, and how we move forward. Like what a gift that those things happen to teach us about ourselves and about this journey and about this process, because ultimately this is a decision that you're going to have to make forever, right? So if over the next 90 days a kid doesn't sleep or you miss your alarm or you are traveling out of town and you miss a workout, like I can guarantee you that in the course of those 90 days, it's probably going to happen more than once, and you're going to have to make that decision more than once, and you're going to have to live with that decision and feel good about that decision. But even past those 90 days, like you couldn't pay me enough to believe that it's not going to happen again. I always say, easy isn't the promise, victory is. So when we expect adversity and we learn how to trust ourselves in making those decisions, I truly do feel like that is where our lives changed. Now, kind of side note, I'm honestly surprised that she did end up committing to dig deeper, because that surely was not the answer she was looking for. She was probably thinking like, okay, but what, like, am I just going to do the workout on a different day or what? Like, can you just tell me what to do here? But all of that being said, the vision that I'm working on with all of you tonight would not be possible for me without 2023. And the vision that you are going to work through crafting tonight is not going to be possible for you without 2023. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. And because we got a lot to go through in 45 minutes, I'm only going to set a timer for about 2 to 3 minutes. And I want you to start this process, and I want you to promise that you're going to come back to it, because there's also going to be things that you're going to need to move through doing after this call is over. So what we're going to do is we're going to write a letter to our future self. And this is something that Tate reminded me of has been really beneficial for him on something that I shared on a vision call, maybe last year or the year before, is writing a letter to your future self. So who is 2024, insert your name. So like, who is 2024 Beth? In order to get to where you want to go, you have to become the person who is already there. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to reflect on 2023 and we're going to celebrate the growth. It's there. We just talked about it. And maybe you haven't felt it until now, hopefully, as I'm kind of giving you some firsthand examples. But remember, what we seek, we will find. So I want you to do that in your mind, and I want you to attach that to who you're going to be on this day next year in 2024. So 12 months from now. This is going to take some time doing, so you're going to have to walk through this after, my timer goes off in 2 to 3 minutes. But I don't want you to overthink this. I think journaling scares a lot of us because we feel like we have to write the perfect thing or say the perfect thing, or it has to make sense. It doesn't have to make sense. I always tell my clients when they're journaling, I want you to just think of all these thoughts that you have in your head and literally picture it coming out of your head, down your neck, down your shoulder, across your shoulder, down your arm, to your pen, on your paper, and just go. Like, don't hold back. Don't overthink it. Nobody's going to read it but you. But that's what I want you to do right now. I want you to think about what went well this year. How did you grow? How did your relationships expand? What is something that you're proud of? Is there a new habit or a routine that you picked up that you want to continue? What hardships or challenges did you actually make it through? And maybe even like, what was your biggest lesson? And then how does all of that play a role in the 2024 version of you? Okay. And I think what you'll find is that your language is going to sit differently. You're going to start writing or typing, whatever you're doing, things out as if they've already happened. Because what happens when we practice this, it's why journaling is such a huge piece of growth day, is you literally start rewiring the way that you're thinking. Okay. So I'm going to set my timer for just a couple minutes. Think through this year, celebrate those things, expand on those things, and attach them to 2024. And remember, you're writing this letter to yourself. So just speak to yourself, whether you're typing or writing, and we will come back in just a couple minutes. Okay, for the sake of time, come to a pause point and promise yourself that you're going to come back. I don't know about you, but I was just like going like a mile a minute. Like I couldn't stop. And I think that it's just such a powerful activity to write this letter to yourself and then commit to 12 months from now coming back. Put it somewhere where you're not going to forget about it, coming back to it and reading it. Okay. And then when you walk through this process this time next year, you'll be able to read that letter and write a new one. I feel the same way about it, Matt. Like Matt was saying in the chat that it feels kind of daunting. You're like, oh my gosh, I gotta reflect on all this and write to my future self. But when you start writing, it just comes out. Yeah, I am too. So how about in Scotty's team page, those of you that finish, I would love for you to pop in there. Don't share what you wrote unless you really want to, but just maybe like let us know that you did it and maybe any kind of, epiphanies that you had or the way that it made you feel. I think that would be really cool to like have a thread in the team page where we could kind of come back and reflect on that. Okay, so that's part one, is to check yourself, right? Now, who before do? This is a concept that I learned from Craig Rochelle, one of his books that I read. And this basically talks about how we need to focus on who we are, not what we do. So I want you to kind of think through this. Have you ever felt like the reason why you can't accomplish something is because fill in the blank, you're not disciplined enough, you're not outgoing enough, you don't have enough followers, you aren't a morning person, you have never been fit, you whatever, fill in the blank. I know that I have, right? Those are called limiting beliefs. And what I think happens is oftentimes we think that the reason why we can't follow through with something or stay consistent with something, for example, goals that we set at the new year, is because we lack something, a skill, we have a fear, we lack a confidence in our ability to do something, to be something. But good news is, and if any of you guys are Ed Milet fans, you have heard him talk about this time and time again. The good news is that it's because of something much deeper, and that is your identity. Right. And I was thinking through kind of this part of our talk tonight, and I had this big epiphany of like, in the past, come New Year's, I would set goals like I'm going to work out 4 times a week, and I'm going to start this morning routine, and I'm reading my Bible every morning, and I'm going to, read one personal development book a month, and I'm going to meal prep on Sundays, and I'm going to whatever, fill in the blank, hit elite, hit Success Club 10, walk the stage at Summit, hit 2-star, whatever your things are. And what I realized is that, when we focus on these goals, it's something like 93% of people, right, don't stick with them. And what happens though is that each time we kind of fail at these attempts, and this resonates with you in like a kind of shorter of a time frame way, right? Like anytime you've started a new program or gone into a new month with your business goals or whatever, we only focus on the action, right? Think about those goals that I just rambled through. Work out 4 times a week, read one book a month, start a morning routine. Those are actions, right? We're so focused on the action that then we lose sight of who we are being or who we're becoming in the process of the goal, right? Much like what we just talked about with 2023, we're so focused on this didn't happen and this didn't happen and I missed this and I did this. But when we realize that actions are only like 5% of the equation, and who we are, which is our identity, all encompassing of our beliefs, our thought patterns, our feelings, our, consistent behaviors, that's like 95% of the equation, right? If you don't identify as the type of person who takes action to achieve whatever outcome it is that you're wanting to achieve, then your results aren't going to last. So that's what this concept basically talks about, is that we have to put the who first. When we put the do first, we're only focusing on a behavior modification, and behavior modifications never work because they don't exist in a vacuum, right? If we target the behavior or the thing, you're essentially, I like to think of it as like you're pulling up a weed without getting the root, right? Or you're treating an illness by only treating the symptoms, kind of a thing. So think of something that you want to change, a behavior like getting up early to read your Bible or to do a workout. You crush it for a few weeks, and then what happens? Like you literally just stop feeling like doing it. So you stop doing it. Or maybe, I don't know, maybe if you're a unicorn and you've never experienced that, I'm sure you've seen it with some of your clients. I know for me, just like thinking back over my 7 years of being a partner with Body, I'm always like, not always, but in my weekend moments, I'm like, oh, just wait till this new program comes out. Like, it's about to change the game. I'm about to get abs. I'm about to help 50 people this month. My business is about to explode. I'm like, oh, just wait. That's me focusing on like literally something outside of myself, a program, a time frame, a January 1, a Monday, a dig deeper, a whatever, to be a catalyst for all of this change in my life, when really I can make the decision to focus on who Beth will become through the process of completing the program or helping the people or doing the things. And I can do that right now. Okay. So some things that I want you to kind of either snap a picture of this so you can come back to it, or write them down. But these are what I like to call identity questions. And I always say, if you want better answers, ask better questions. So an example of this, and like obviously we're in the fitness space here, so I'm using that as examples. But I want you can think of this in terms of your business or your life or your career or whatever. Why can't I just work out every single day? Or why can't I wake up in the morning? Maybe you need to ask yourself, what do I need to shift or change in order to be more consistent with my workouts? Doesn't that feel different? Like, oh, why can't I just get up and work out every single morning? Versus, okay, that is who I know I want to become to reach whatever goal it is that you're wanting to reach. So what do I need to change? What pivots do I need to make in order to be more consistent with that? And some of the questions that I like to ask are these that are on this slide. How have I been perceiving and valuing myself? Who do I want to be in the future? How does the future me actually act? You guys have probably heard, like be her now, be him now. Don't wait until something, dramatic happens to like feel like you are that person. You have to start showing up as that person now. Literally on my alarm, when my alarm goes off in the morning, I don't know if you guys can see it, but when my alarm goes off, the tagline on the alarm says, be her now. Because let's be honest, my better judgment the night before set the 5 a.m. alarm. The 5 a.m. version of me, when my alarm goes off, is like, no, girl, another hour. Like the kids aren't going to wake up till 7. You could still squeeze, you could rush through the process of the morning routine, whatever. But when my alarm goes off and I go to turn it off with like my one eye closed and it says, be her now, I'm like, no, she gets up, right? She gets up and I get up most of the time. You see what I mean? Like it feels different when you approach it from that space. And then this is a really big one. Am I acting like a person who gets to reap the rewards of the outcome I want? Like, oh, I feel like that one is just like punch in the gut, right? I want a 6-figure business. I want to be physically fit. I want to help 50 people this month or 5 people this month, or fill in the blank with whatever the goal is. Am I acting like a person who deserves to reap the rewards of that? I mean, we all deserve it, right? But am I acting like a person who actually gets to reap the fruit of that? So good, right? And then do you actually see it happening, which we're going to talk about in just a minute. But I want to wrap this part, this kind of point 2 up with this quote by Jamie Lima that says, we don't get what we want, we get what we believe we are worthy of. So good. Do not underestimate the power of your identity, right? Something else Ed Milet and lots of others talk about are the difference between goals and standards. Like, what are you willing to accept from yourself? That's like the standard piece, right? Versus the identity piece being, my thoughts, my beliefs, like how do I identify as? A really kind of popular example here is, I think of this with some of my clients, them saying like, I really want to lose 30 pounds, but I've always been overweight. And I'm like, well, you're not going to do the things that somebody who loses 30 pounds does if your identity is rooted in always being overweight. You know what I mean? So a new program's not probably going to fix your issue, right? What's going to fix our issue is rooting ourselves in knowing what we are worthy of. And that's where the identity comes into play. So here's the vision decision. How do you want your life to feel? What's your word? So I kind of mentioned this at the beginning of the call of sometimes I feel like vision can kind of be like this woohoo thing, like cloud in the sky, and it doesn't feel very tactical or tangible. So then we kind of focus on setting goals, SMART goals specifically. And if you guys listened to the Daily Fire yesterday, I believe, Brennan was like, I literally put earplugs in when I hear somebody say SMART goals. He's like, smart. He's like, we're not setting realistic goals here, right? Like he's a high performance coach. He's like, we're pushing the boundaries. But I do believe that this approach to vision is very tactical. It's very tangible. And if you follow through the process, goals will feel easy to set in a way that align with what your vision is. We all know that most, New Year's resolutions are like done and an afterthought by like what, January 15th. It's like the enthusiasm, the excitement, the energy is gone. The goal itself is gone. But the thing about it that I believe to be true is that it's not because we don't know what to do, right? It's just because we don't do it. I posted a poll on my stories yesterday asking people, what specifically do you struggle with nutrition? Is it that you don't know what to eat? You feel overwhelmed by the thought of having to meal prep, or there were a couple other options. Literally not one person on the poll tapped the option that said, I don't know what to eat. Like, yeah, there's obviously ways you can tweak what you eat. You can follow Portion Fix, or you can follow 2 Mindset, or you can do Whole30 or Paleo or whatever. There's ways to tweak that. But at the end of the day, like, we all know that we probably shouldn't eat 3 bags of chips in one sitting while we're binge watching our favorite Netflix show, or a pint of Bluebell ice cream. Yes. Or a pint of Bluebell ice cream 4 nights a week, right? Like, we know better, right? It's not a knowledge problem. And so I wanted to share this quote with you guys that says, it's by Bob Proctor, and he says, if you can hold it, this is so good. If you can hold it in your head, you can hold it in your hand. And basically what that means to me is that in order for you to have the thing that you really want, you have to be able to visualize it and see it. And when you visualize it, like we've been talking about with our brains here, it literally changes your brain. It rewires your brain, and you actually start to become the person who has reached the goal even before you've actually reached the goal. How many of you know how to, the process of hitting Success Club 5 every month, right? You know that you need to sign 3 people up with a total switch pack, right? How many of you know how to get stronger, build muscle? Like, you know how, right? Drink your Recover, do Dig Deeper, lift some weights, eat healthy, drink your water, go on a walk, get some vitamin D, right? You know what to do. You maybe just haven't done it yet. And I don't know about you guys, but that feels so empowering to me, because I feel like when we leverage it being a knowledge issue as a crutch, it feels very easy to convince ourselves that just is what it is. Like, I just don't know, and I think by being able to take ownership over, like, okay, it's not that I don't know what to do, it's that I'm just like actually not doing it. And Brendon Burchard talks about this idea being literally just common sense, right? Like, when we know what to do, but there's failure in the practice, right, of doing it. And he talks about how, sometimes it comes from a failure of willpower, or, sometimes of circumstance. But if you're failing to implement something that you can already do, he attaches that to your vision. He says that your vision for your life is stuck to today, or your vision for your life is stuck to yesterday. Because if you have a different vision for your life and you know what to do, and that vision is compelling, and it's something that's real and important and it excites you, guess what? You're going to do it. But if it's a fake vision, or if it, there's not a lot of thought put into it, or if it's kind of a follow the leader vision where, like, maybe, oh, so-and-so set these goals, so maybe those are the goals I need to be setting, or that's what I should want for my life. That's why you're not doing the basics. For example, you want to lose weight, but you haven't lost weight yet. You probably don't have a vision for what a healthy life looks like for you. Maybe you want to lose the pounds, but you haven't envisioned a healthy life. What does that look like? What does that feel like? You want to build a successful body business, right? To contribute to your family's income in whatever way, to help a lot of people, but you haven't done so yet. Maybe it's because you haven't envisioned what having that sort of a business, how that would really impact your life, what it would feel like. So even the common sense things you're not going to do. It reminds me of like the identity talk, right? Like if you don't truly believe that that is who you are and that's what you're capable of, you're not going to do those things. Well, if your vision, if it's not deeply rooted in what you really do want and there's not clarity around it, you're not going to do the common sense things. And you know, this is relevant obviously not to just our health. Think of any kind of dream that you have. For example, mine was to be an entrepreneur. I wanted to be a work from home mom, but I wanted to do something that allowed me to help a lot of people and make a lot of money. But I didn't come from an entrepreneurial family. I didn't have a business degree. I actually have an animal science degree. Thank you very much. Like I was supposed to be a veterinarian. I know you guys relate to this, right? Like when you started your business, you're like, social media, marketing, And when you are an online entrepreneur, you have to wear a lot of hats. Now, I didn't have the money, obviously, to start a brick and mortar business. So God gave me Body, formerly known as Beachbody. And the thing about that, though, was that this was an online business, which was really inexpensive to start, which worked really well for me logistically. But it also meant that I had to share stuff on social media, which means that I had to talk to people and talk to a camera. And believe it or not, I wasn't like born with the gift of knowing how to talk to people, but I knew that it was a skill that I was going to have in order to make the dream or the vision come true, right? So every morning I would visualize myself, like a vision of me being at home with my babies, sitting on the living room, on the rug, watching a little cartoon while they ate their breakfast with no rush out the door. I don't know why, but waking up a sleeping child gives me so much anxiety, even to this day, after being a work from home mom for 4.5 years. Like when I have to wake a kid up in the morning to go somewhere or a nap, it just stresses me out. And I would visualize like the feeling of not having to wake them up in the morning to rush out the door. Now, that doesn't have to be your dream. That was mine. But as I was sitting there visualizing it, I would literally break out into a full-blown sweat, full of anxiety, because I didn't feel equipped, right? Like I knew in order to live that life, to have that vision, I was going to have to help a lot of people. In order to help a lot of people, talk to a lot of people. In order to talk to a lot of people, I was going to have to leverage social media. And in order to do that, I was going to have to talk to this thing. And it scared the crap out of me. But what Brendan teaches us is if something about our future doesn't scare the crap out of us, then we're not thinking of a future big enough. Right? Now, there's obviously things that we have to learn to implement, like willpower and confidence and discipline. But the reason that most people don't take real, practical, common sense efforts towards their vision and towards their dreams is because they don't see the dream yet. And that is why I believe that this idea of a vision is truly the foundation upon which our goals need to be set in business, in our personal life, financially, in our relationships, in all of the ways. You know, I want you to think about like, have I laid in bed and thought, about my vision enough? Or have I thought, well, that would be nice. But I always say, what happens when we start thinking about big, scary visions that make us sweat? Here's what our brains do. They like to keep us safe, comfy. That's science, right? We don't need to talk about that. We're like, oh, that would be really cool. But like, where's the time, energy, effort, money going to come for that? So let me just like take it down a notch. And then we settle here. And because we're not truly deeply connected to, attached to that vision that we just settled for, we don't even realize this is happening. This is oftentimes very subconscious. But then we just give up on it because it doesn't really matter to us, right? There's a big difference between a wouldn't that be nice vision and an I own this dream. This is in my heart, it is in my body, it's in my legs, I feel it, I sense it. You don't luck into that, right? You decide what you want and you see it and you step into it mentally. And here's the kicker. Day after day. Day after day. So for me, I pictured myself talking confidently to, believe it or not, when I started my business, we didn't have Instagram stories. I used Snapchat. That was like or YouTube. That was like the video form of like stories back in the day. I know it's embarrassing. But I pictured myself confidently talking to my Snapchat. I pictured myself, I actually did this thing every morning. I should find an old YouTube recording that I probably have as unlisted right now. I hope that I do anyways, and share it with the recording of this call just to like, I mean, you guys are really going to believe that you can do anything. If you see one of these coffee chats I used to do, I would drink my coffee at 3:30 in the morning while I was working my business before I went off to work that day. And it was just like whatever my takeaway from my personal development was, it was like 3 minutes long, but I pictured myself not being nervous doing my coffee chat video. I pictured myself actually helping somebody lose weight and feel good. I pictured myself speaking on the National Wake Up Call, speaking at NLC, walking the stage at Summit, sitting on the living room on the floor with my babies during a slow morning. You have to picture those things. And here's the thing about it. You can picture them in steps, right? Like maybe the thought of that business that I knew I needed to build to be home with my babies and to create a lot of impact, maybe that did really feel, even though I was deeply rooted to and connected to it, I didn't feel equipped. So I focused on visualizing the confidence in my videos, right? And the confidence in my conversations, because I knew that those things were going to get me there, but I never lost sight of it. Okay, so I'm going to wrap us up with this. You may be thinking, like, what if this doesn't come true? And I heard this sometime somewhere, somebody say, okay, get ready for it. Are you ready? If you're thinking like, oh yeah, but like if I say that, or if I say that I want that, then it doesn't come true, then I failed again. Here's the thing. It's probably not going to come true, but who taught us that it was about the destination, right? We just learned that it's about the journey. So whether it comes true or not, and I shouldn't say it more than likely won't, because what I mean by that is like, it's probably going to turn out way more incredible than you ever could have fathomed, right? It's not about the destination. We have to let go of that. We have to remind ourselves that it's about who we're becoming in the process and the journey. And I mean that in a very practical way. I don't mean that in a feel good, like pat on the back participation ribbon, right? Because it's going to create a lot of grit and a lot of resiliency. So remember, common practice, these common sense things, they're not common because they are common, right? They're not fancy. It's inches every single day. It doesn't look like a lot. It doesn't feel like a lot. It's not sexy. We want the destination. We want the end goal. But at the end of the day, when we don't feel the destination, because it's not going to happen in a day, right? And we're like, like I dream of this. But the first step is, for me, 2023. And that's the importance in you walking through this process of writing that letter to yourself, asking yourself those identity questions, and reminding yourself of this vision decision, and not convincing yourself that it's just this cloud in the sky thing, and that it really is the firm foundation upon which every single goal that you're going to set going into the new year is going to be built upon. Our guy Brendan says the vision has to be tapped into every single day. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to walk through all this, and then I want you to put a vision board together. You can do it on Canva with pictures, whatever. You put it on like the desktop of your computer, the background of your phone. But I don't want it to be, my vision boards have always looked like a specific dollar amount, or a specific, success club number point, or a specific rank, or a specific vacation that I wanted to take, or a specific debt that I wanted to pay off, or, whatever. I want you to focus on putting pictures on this vision board that create emotion with a word that means something to you. You guys have heard of like the word of the year, like your word of the year. I want you to pick a word that means something to you. And I want you to pick pictures that mean something to you, that create feeling and emotion when you look at them, that are going to remind you of what it is that you're tapping into every single day, what habits, what routines, what systems, what actions you are going to figure out need to be taken, need to be built, need to be had in order to create that vision, which ultimately are here's my dog, the feelings, the emotions that you want to create in your life. That's all I got for you guys. If you have any questions, I'm looking at the chat. Yeah, the what if. I might have been thinking too much about what if. I love that, Scotty. Yeah. That's something that Brett and I talk about a lot. Brett's always like, mind you, he just turned 34. He's like, he feels like he's on a time crunch. He's like, man, I'm almost 35. I'm like, you're only 34, bro. You got like 90 years left. What are you talking about? But doesn't that make such a big difference, Scotty? Like per your example, you're like, you can say, you know, like, I'm 42, like, or like I'm 36, I should have made it by now, or I'm 40, I should have had this, or I've been in this business for 7 years, like I should be in a different place, versus I'm only 35, I'm only 42. I've only been in this business for 7 years. Look at everything that's changed. Look at all the ways in which I'm different, all the ways in which I've grown, and look how much potential is left, or how much time is left. I don't see any questions. I'm really proud of myself for keeping this to only 5 minutes past what I'm supposed to. If you've ever been on a Zoom call with me, you know that I'm like, okay, this is only going to be 30 minutes. And then 90 minutes later, I'm like, okay, I'm so sorry. All right. Well, if you guys don't have anything else, thank you for being on live or for watching the recording, and can't wait to see what you guys do with 2024.